Okay, hello, welcome to the channel. If you're trying to prepare for the PMP exam or you're trying to understand what project management is about. Now, one thing I normally would tell my students is you need to understand what project management have been earlier on and what it is today. And one way to be able to do that is to be able to understand the difference between project management body of knowledge version 6 and of course project management body of knowledge version 7. On my channel, I have complete series on project management version 6 that have been adapted to 7. So in this series, I want to begin to start looking at the differences. I want to start looking at case studies. I want to start looking at hands-on examples. I want to start looking at project management templates, project management guide. So if it's what interests you, if you actually want to become a better project management, stay tuned and watch this video from the beginning to the end. Now, in this particular video, we want to look at the difference between PMBOK version 6 and PMBOK version 7. Now, the question is, what is PMBOK? So the full meaning is Project Management Body of Knowledge. And what do you call a body of knowledge? A body of knowledge are sets of principles, guidelines, uh, procedures, anything that informs how a particular profession is to practice or to do things. You call that a set of knowledge. You call that a body of knowledge. Guys in the medical field, guys in the aviation, guys in different aspects of enterprise, they have a way things should be done, set of guidelines and principles. In project management, we call that project management body of knowledge. And for professionals, anybody going into project management, you need to understand how things should be done. You need to understand what the standard is like. And we had several versions. I started doing project management when it was still, I think, sometime version 4, version 5, 12, 13 years ago. Now, up until then, before 7, we had 6, and currently, the latest 2001 edition after the COVID era came version 7. Now, if you understand the difference between these two, it will help you become a project manager because now you're looking at how project management have been before and of course how it is now. Now let's look at the detailed comparison. Don't forget project management have two major popular standard, the PMI, the Prince2 standard, and of course the PMI standard. So our focus more is going to be on persons that are already preparing on trying to understand project management as being compiled or being brought about by PMI. That's the US standard. Now, project management body of knowledge is a cornerstone resource for project management professionals. So as published by PMI, like I said. So if you want to go into project management, you need to understand what the body of knowledge is about. You need to understand what comprises how you should go about doing project and how you should go about adapting your project management principles. Now, in version 6, we're going to look at a table that looks at version 6 and version 7. Now, in version 6, we had a process-oriented and prescriptive way to do projects. If you're a plumber, if you're an architect, if you're a tech person, if you're a medical doctor, there are processes, what we call the processes. We have what we call the process group. We have all of that. Now, just to say, not like everything you've had in version 6, you can do away with and you don't actually need them. We just have a better way to carry out project. We have a more adaptive way to carry out project. So in version 6, we're looking at more of process-oriented and prescriptive way to do project. So in version 6, we're looking at how do you manage your project by detailing a set of project management processes. So very structured, very in a methodological way on how to manage your project. So you are told, okay, if you want to do this, these are the sets of input, these are the sets of tools and techniques, these are the set of outputs. You might be wondering, what do you mean by input, tools, and techniques, and of course, outputs? It's just like when you want to make, let's say you want to make bread. If you need to make bread, one of the things you need to do is to get some set of inputs. Some inputs you need is something like flour, sugar, you need water, you need all of those ingredients. You even need let's say your gas cylinder, you need a gas stove, or you need a baking machine. You need all of that. So that's your set of inputs. Now you need some tools and techniques. So what is going to be like the tools? What tools do you need in terms of machinery, in terms of techniques? How are you going to do the baking? Are you going to marinate it? Are you going to turn it? Are you going to flip it? What are those kind of techniques that's going to be involved in trying to make the bread? At the end of the day, you're going to have some set of outputs. You're going to have, let's say, a baked bread. So in project management version 6, there was this kind of set of inputs, tools, and techniques. So if you look at the version 6, you will see for every aspect of your project, there are always a set of inputs, tools, and techniques, and outputs on how you should manage the project. Now, another thing also you need to note in version 6 is that it's largely achieved by consistently applying a defined set of practices and process. So that has shifted in how you do project these days, especially when you're looking at the version 7 guideline. Now, the version 7 is very, very process driven and value driven. Now, you don't longer want to look at how do you go about doing the project? The question is, what value do you want to deliver? How will you deliver value? So it's very, very principle based. And when we say principle based, it's so that we can deliver value. You're not looking at how, you're looking at why you take certain actions. Because at the end of the day, what matters most is that you can deliver value to your client. If you do a set of projects and it doesn't deliver value to the client is going to reject it. You have situations whereby you've done project A, project B, or you've done several aspects of your deliverables, and the client does not get value. The client can reject, the client can close the project. So the focus is shifting to why certain actions are taken. And you now have in version 7 very, very detailed set of principles. Now you have a guidance style. Now, in version 7, you're looking more of tailoring. And when you say tailoring, you're trying to not prescribe how somebody should do stuff. You're trying to see how can you tailor your approach based on the project's unique characteristics. How you're going to carry out a project in oil and gas is going to be different from how you're going to carry out a project in tech. It's going to be different from how you're going to carry out a project in construction. So your context is going to be, your uniqueness is going to be characteristics of the project, the context of the project, the environment of the project, how you're going to do a project in Kenya, in the US, in Nigeria. Even within Nigeria or within the US, within different states, business environment, you have laws, you have guidelines, you have policy of government, you have different stakeholders that might influence how projects should be carried out. You need to understand how to tailor whatever approach you're using. Now, in version 6, it was more or less like a consistent way to do things, irrespective of the domain. But here in version 7, we are understanding that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to project management. Effective project management is about applying guiding principles, adaptive processes, practices to ensure that you achieve value. Because what matters at the end of the day is that you have value. If your client can derive value from your project, then it makes you a better project manager. Now, in version 6, also, we want to look at how the material is structured. So you have 5 process groups, which we call initiating, we call planning, we call execution, we call monitoring and control, and we call closing. So we're trying to say that for every project you want to carry out, if you want to make, for instance, this water, you need to initiate it at the point where you're creating a project chapter. You need to initiate, oh, I have this idea, I start penning it down. All of that have to do with initiation. You initiate the project. Then next thing you want to do, you want to start planning. So how am I going to do that? After you've drafted your charter, how am I going to do that? I will need to plan how I'm going to set up the factory to produce this water. I will need to plan how I'm going to set up my team. I'm going to plan how I'm going to do communication. I'm going to plan. You do the set of plannings. After you're done with all of the set of plannings, the next thing you want to do is to start executing. While you're doing executing, the next thing you want to consider is how do I monitor and control all of these things I'm working on to make sure that whatever I'm doing fits into the original plan I had. Then at the end of the day, you want to close the project. That is the 5 process groups you have in the version 6. Then you have 10 knowledge areas. That say you have a set of knowledge base that every project manager should be able to know, of course, and you have the 49 distinct processes. You have it summarized in something like this, right? So let me see if I can expand this a little bit. So you have the process groups, you have initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and control, closing. So you have knowledge areas. So project integration management, scope management, schedule, cost, quality, resource, communication, risks, procurement, stakeholder management. So these are the 10 set of knowledge base that you need to understand if you're carrying out a project. Then aside that, you now have the processes. Now, if you were that's what we said in version 6, it was more or less process driven. So in initiating, what do? You develop a project charter. In planning, what do? You draft a project management plan. You do a scope management plan. So all of these are set of activities that you're going to be doing. And for each of them, you have a set of input, you have a set of tools and techniques, you have a set of output. So that's to say that if you want to do project charter, there are a set of things that you have to have as your input to develop a project charter. Then, of course, there are tools and techniques you're going to use, things like brainstorming, things like doing your meetings, so all of the tools, all of the things, learning from expert guidelines, all of these things are a set of things you need to do before you can now get the output, which is like your project charter and several other deliverables. Now, so this is how version 6 was structured. In version 7, we are looking at organized set of principles. So what are the kind of principles that should guide what we're doing? Now, what should be the performance domains? Performance domain here now we now mean, what should we be measuring? What should be our KPIs? What should we be looking at where we are working on our project? Things like our team, things like, so there are several things that you're going to be looking at. So you have it also summarized here. So there's this guy, Ricardo Vargas, excellent project manager over the years. I follow him. So this is credit to him. He summarized the version 7 in this format. So he did some kind of infographic. You could check on his site also to download this. I will leave a credit to him and put a link here. Now, you see that you have set of principles, then you have performance domain. So the set of principles, they are 12 in number. The performance domain, they are 8 in numbers. So in the terms of performance domain, we're looking at what are the things that are critical to delivery of the outcomes. Now in principles, we're looking at how should we approach stuff. So you have stewardship, you have team, you have stakeholder, you have value, you have system thinking, you have leadership. Of course, you have change, you have adaptability and resilience, you have risks, you have complexity, you have quality, you have tailoring. These are the guiding principles on how you should carry out a project. Then at the end of the day, in performance, you're looking at stakeholder again, you're looking at team, you're looking at project work, you're looking at deliverable, you're looking at development approach and life cycle, you're looking at measurement, you're looking at uncertainty, you're looking at planning. Now, you see there's a drift between what you have in 6 and, of course, what you have in 7. And that's why these days, I always like my students to understand what we used to have before in version 6 and fully understand, because you're not doing away with all of those concepts. If you can master both concepts, you now have a full grasp of project management, and it can help you become a better project manager. Now, we've replaced the input tools, techniques, and output with what we call model, methods, and artifacts. So offering a general toolbox for common techniques, documents without prescribing their use to specific situations. So we have more or less a more adaptive way to carry out project. Now, understand that the PM version 6 core components, the what and how, and I've just talked about the initiating group, the planning group. In initiating, this is the initial aspect of the project where you authorize the project. And it's about getting formal approval to start a project. So when you talk about initiating a project, when the project sponsor or the project owner gives you a draft and gives you a go-ahead to begin commencing the project. If it's a building project, you don't need to lay the block or some set of woods or some sort of foundation before you know the project started. No, the project has started immediately. You have an authority to start work. If it's a software, for instance, you are building, the moment this project sponsor initiates by giving you authority to handle the project, and you begin doing all of the proposals, all of the plannings, all of the brainstorming, at that point, the project has started. So that's what you call the initiating process group. So formal approval to start work, establish the project purpose, and you call that the initiating step. In planning, this is where you now define your scope, look at your risks, look at the resources that you're going to be needing, and you create a kind of a roadmap on how you're going to do everything. Then in executing, this is where you now look at work, you look at team, you look at a lot of the deliverables at different stages of the project. Then, of course, like I said, you're going to monitor, then, of course, you close the project. Your project is not completed until you officially close the project. Now, of course, in version 6, you have what we call the knowledge areas. I've explained them. So it outlines what do we need to know. Now, you have a lot of project managers. They are bankrupt in terms of risk management, in terms of people management. I always talk about the 5 M's of management, the 7 M's of management. Please look it up. For the 5 M's of management, if you want to keep it simplistic, you see, project managers at times will think that to run a project or to carry out a project is just about money. No, money is not everything you need to carry out a project. You need money, you need manpower, you need people, you need material, you need machines. There are several things you need to be able to carry out a project. It's not just the money. So once you don't understand or you don't have the knowledge, then it becomes an issue. So this area presents disciplines of project management. So it's like your project management is like your mini MBA. All the things you need to do to carry out your project in order to deliver value. So you have integration, you have scope, you have schedule. I have a complete series on project management on my channel. I will drop a link in the description. Do well to check that out. It's a 6-module training. Go through them, take your notes. If you have questions, don't forget to ask. We take on internships, we take on students mentoring program. You could reach out to us and we'll get back to you. So I will just go through this. You have scope, you have schedule, you have cost, you have quality, you have resource, you have communication, you have risks. These are the knowledge areas that you need to understand. Then, of course, things like communication, risks, resources, stakeholder. Now, in version 7, we're looking at why and, of course, where to focus, not how, right? We're looking at why. So here we're looking at stewardship. So there's need for project managers to actually act responsibly, ethically, demonstrating integrity, care for their project. Now they need to see themselves as co-owners of the project, because at times I tell my clients that if this project is successful, it's a plus. So you need to take the project as yours. there needs to be some sort of trustworthiness in all your project activities. Then you need to create a kind of a collaborative environment. That's your function as a project manager. Create a collaborative project team environment that encourages shared ownership, learning, mutual respect. In my teams, I manage different varieties of teams, internal teams, I manage external teams. One of the things I want to do first when I set up my team is to understand that most of the times when you set up your team, you're going to have a, a, a different phases that your team will actually go through. And as a project manager, if you understand that, it will help you create better teams. It will help you create performing teams. The first one is that you need to understand that when you set up your team or when people come together to be able to carry out a project, people will try to fall. People try to get to know each other. And as you're trying to get to know each other, they start seeing the differences between their personalities, how each person wants to do stuff, their knowledge base, and all of that. And the second phase you now see is that you're going to have a lot of storming. Storming will mean people will start having some kind of disagreement, people will start having some kind of issues with each other, and leave the actual goal of delivering value for the project. Now, after that phase, you now get to a phase where people will now start kind of getting to amend all of these things. Then after that, you now start seeing a sense of performance. People start performing. And of course, people now go their separate ways. As a project manager, you want to make sure that people go very fast to that performing mode. You don't want to set up a team and it takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months for them to like get to their forming, storming, before they get to their performing stage. So you are looking at each person and see how you bring out the best in them to make sure that they can actually deliver value for the project. Stakeholders. So you need to manage stakeholders because stakeholders have their different degrees of impact. A stakeholder is that person that is going to have either influence the project, be impacted by the project, have a say to the project, or typically anybody that has something to do with the project, contribute to the success or might make the project to fail. Then, of course, value. So you have system thinking. So you want to, in system thinking here, you're looking at a holistic approach. You want to look at everything that is going to make the project either fail or the project succeed. You don't want to look at things in isolation. You look at everything holistically. You want to look at the entire system. Then leadership. So demonstrate, you want to adapt leadership behaviors to support individuals, your teams. You want to foster a positive project environment. Just yesterday within my team, part of the things I did was to create new set of teams. And within even the work environment, set them up in virtual teams, set them up also in physical teams, because when you have teams, they can be co-located. That's it, that they're within the same location, or they can be virtual, or it can be hybrid. So depending on the way you set up your team, you want to create the teams to a way that you can foster leadership, you can drive leadership, you can lead, you can guide. And everything you need to do to be able to achieve that is what you want to go for. Tailoring. Here, you want to make sure that you can adapt. Design the project development approach based on the context of the project. Like I said earlier on, how you carry out a project in a particular field, it's not going to be the same how you're going to carry out a project in another field. Stakeholders matter, governance, laws, regulation, rules in that particular sector, the environment, using just enough process to achieve this desired outcome. So you don't need to go to create all the project management documents, all the project management templates. At times, I give my students as much as 100 templates on how to do different things in project management. But in version 7, we're saying that, yes, you might have a way to do things in terms of project management, but you must select only what matters because your goal is to have a desired outcome. So in quality, because quality is what we have agreed at the onset of the project to deliver. Quality is not about luxury. Uh, you want to build quality into the process and deliverables, ensuring that the project output meets acceptance criteria. Because quality is what did the client say he wants at the beginning of the project. That's why most of the times when we carry out projects, especially projects in tech, in medicals, and for all the sectors that we serve, we always like the client with us together to draft the scope of the project. And from that, we can derive some certain KPIs as regards quality. So that once the project is done, we can go back to the drawing board and say, okay, these are the things that we said we were going to do at the beginning, and they are all done. We have a checklist, we tick them. Complexity. So because at times things will become uncertain, things we might go south. At times things you might not get to understand them. Now, you want to see how you can navigate all of that and deliver project. Of course, risks, adaptability, change management. Change management, very important because at times the future state, you might not have envisaged it properly. How do you recognize all of these changes? How do you go through change management? How do you ensure that at the end of the day, it does not affect your time, it does not affect your original scope? And if it does, how do you adapt to still at the end of the day deliver value? Then for performance domain, so we're looking at interactive, independent area of focus that work together to achieve project outcomes. So what are those different things that we can look at that can affect or impact on our outcome? So stakeholders, team, development life cycles. So how do you carry out the project? Do you use a hybrid, a waterfall, a predictive? How do you go about doing that? So you need to plan your project work, uncertainty, delivery, measurement. What are some certain set of metrics you want to use for informed decision? So these are the performance domains in version 7. Now, in version 6, when we look at agile and hybrid methodology integration. Now, in each version, in version 6, we call it a dedicated agile practice guide. It's in the appendix. Now, in version 7, agile is integrated fully because, like I said, today in this age, agile principles are very core. Agile principles are very, very important. And when we say agile, we mean that we are not just carrying out projects in a very step-by-step process. Rather, we are trying to be as flexible as possible, having some form of iterative, some kind of agile principles to ensure that at every stage of the project, we are open to adaptive change that can help us deliver value. Now, we're not saying that you go against or you go south as regards the project scope. All we are saying is that you want to be as adaptive as possible so that at the end of the day, you deliver value. Now, there's a concept of tailoring. Now, in version 6, tailoring was discussed, but it was not fully explored. But in version 7, tailoring is so important. Version 7 placed a strong and explicit emphasis on tailoring project management approaches. What we're saying is that you have to adapt. There's a dedicated chapter on tailoring. I'll look at both guides before the end of this call. Now, it's project managers are encouraged to evaluate, select the most appropriate tools, methods, artifacts based on the project's specific context. Now, in 6, value delivery, output delivery. So here, we're looking more about output. What are you going to get at the end of a particular phase of a project? But in version 7, we are looking at value. What value? And at each stage, you want to look at what value will the client get? What value are you going to deliver? Not necessarily, oh, I have done this, I have done this, I have done this. At the end of the day, what is the value? Then I think lastly, or second to last, you look at tools, techniques, and artifacts. So in version 6, the emphasis was more on input, tools, and techniques, output. I've given an example of these, and how you do that is through the 49 processes. This is what the 49 processes looks like. So everything here, there are 49 of them. You have 1, you have 2, you have 24 here, that's 2 here, 24 here, 10 here, 12 here, 1 here, making 49 processes. Now, these processes are control schedule. So project managers, you want to understand, how do you control your schedule? How do you control your costs? How do you control your quality? How do you manage quality? How do you manage project knowledge? All these are different processes. And for each of them, there's a set of input, there's a set of tools and techniques, and there's a set of output. I think in later video, I'm going to look at this and see how you also adapt it in a version 7 environment, in a version 7 style. Because we're not saying that you do away with this, but we're saying that you only pick what matters to deliver value for your enterprise. Okay, so in version 7, we're looking at models, we're looking at methods, we're looking at artifacts. So we have some sort of toolbox, right, for various models. So you have methods, how you're going to achieve your approach. Then artifact here, we mean all your deliverables, all your documents. So you choose. You don't need to like go through all the processes one after the other. No, this approach is descriptive rather than prescriptive. So it just tells you what you can do and empowers the team to select the best tools to deliver value. Then in terms of length in the tool guide, I can just show you for free. This is version 6. This is what the PDF, the guide looks like. It's 711 pages, whereas version 7 is just 370 pages. Version 7 is 700 page plus. Sorry, version 6 is 700 page plus. Version 7 is 370 pages. If you watched up to this moment, don't forget to subscribe. Share this to as many that are trying to go into project management, trying to understand how to become project managers, or even business analysts. There is a close relationship between BA and PM. I think I will do another video differentiating them, understand their different roles, maybe in certain projects. So the version 6 is a lot huge, right? I think this came out sometime in 2017, and this came out sometime in 2021, right? Let me check. Yes, 2017. This came out 2017. Then the 7th edition came up 2021, right? Okay. And I'm sure this is going to stay for a long while. The idea is that anytime we have some new set of principles, new set of guidelines, or how we should do stuff, or what contributes to the body of knowledge, you cannot have another version. So like I said, around 750 pages, very extensive, but in version 7, you just have less than 400 pages and more readable. Target audience. So for both of them, version 6 is for project managers, providing a detailed guide for executing projects in a structured and often predictive environment. And when we say predictive environment, we mean more or less a waterfall environment. And when we say waterfall environment, we mean environments where things are very, very strict, things follows very straightforward processes. But in 7th edition, the audience is very large. Team members, people that want to work in very tailored, agile environment, people that want to, regardless of your specific role, regardless of your niche, regardless of your sector, and you can actually adapt this principle. So project managers, team members, sponsors, that are involved in project work, anybody, right? And for the exam, The exam was based on the version 6, and candidates need to understand the 49 processes and their input tools and techniques. But here in version 7, we're looking at principles. We're looking at performance domains. We're looking at value delivery. We're looking at, and don't forget, while still incorporating concept of 6th edition, particularly agile and hybrid approach, candidates are now expected to understand both what and why. So you see why most of the times when students are preparing for project management certification or trying to understand what project management is all about, I like them to go back to version 6. Fully, at times, if I'm taking a 4 weeks program, the first 2 weeks, we have to go through everything in version 6. Then the next 2 weeks, we go through most of the things we have in version 7. Then we'll use our last, maybe the 5th or the 6th week to look at case studies, to look at questions, to look at how things should be done, why you should do stuffs and all of that. So that will make you a far better project manager than just picking the version 7 guide and try to run with it. Because why? It was derived from most of the principles of version 6. So you can't just do away with it. And why principles and how to adapt approaches. The exam is less about memorization and more about situational judgment and critical thinking. So you want to know what you're going to do if you find yourself in certain situation. In this channel, I'm going to also be bringing to you scenario-based kind of exam questions to help you pass your exams. Let's look at the summary table for the key differences. So we have differences between PMBOK 6th and PMBOK 7th edition. So the first one is for approach, it is process-oriented. How do you carry out your project? In version 7, why do you carry out and what value can you derive? In version 6, we have 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, 49 processes. In version 7, we have a very well compressed 12 domains, 12 principles, 8 performance domain, and 3 domains, right? Now, in version 6, the primary focus is on output, deliverables, managing constraints. So we call them project management constraints. What are those things that can affect the end goal of your project? So time, very crucial, schedule, cost, scope. If your scope is huge, it affects how much time you're going to deliver it. It also affects your cost. If your cost is minimal, it affects your scope. What can you do? If you need a laptop, right? This is a 10th generation laptop. It's a terabyte, it's 20 gig RAM. That's the current system I'm using. If you want this particular laptop, it's going to cost X amount of money. If you want, let's say, an 11th or a 12th generation laptop, let's say a 2 terabyte, 32 gig system, the cost is going to, so these are the things that constrain what kind of output you can have, what kind of deliverable you can have. If you also want this laptop immediately in 10 minutes, it's going to shoot up the cost. Imagine if you're going to import 10 pieces of laptops, for instance, and you need it in 24 hours. That's the time. So that means you're going to be using a charter service, or you're going to use maybe, I don't know, maybe a fighter jet, something that's going to bring it in, just like you have Amazon Prime. So you pay a certain amount for Amazon Prime to get services faster, to get discount and all of that. So these are the things that affect your project. So you call that constraints. This is 6. You also have an extended version. This is 3. You also have an extended version that is 6 that incorporates quality and other things. Now in 6, we're looking at value delivery. In version 6, regards Agile, it was limited. We had a separate Agile guide. You also have another project management certification called Scrum. So in 7, it is properly and fully integrated, right? Because a lot of tailoring happens, a lot of adaptive stuff happens. In version 6 also, it is discussed, tailoring is discussed but not emphasized, whereas in version 7 is emphasized. We've looked at the length, we looked at the readability, we looked at the target audience, we looked at the PMP alignment, we're looking at underlying philosophy. I hope this helped you understand project management. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe, and check the playlist. You will see a more detailed training content as regards version 6 being adapted also to version 7. I'm also going to bring in more updates on version 7. I'm going to look at case studies, look at scenarios, look at exam questions, scenarios, how to approach them, and also how to SU exam. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.